Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. Well, let's talk Sgian Dubhs. Part of what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about probably the three that most people see on eBay and also at Amazon, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this knife because I just like to show this knife anyway. But I wanted to show these three Sgian Dubhs, tell you the good points and bad points of them. Yeah, even though they're really tourist tat made in China, they do have some good points to them. But before I do that, let's talk a little bit about the history of Sgian Dubhs and a lot of the misconceptions of them. And one big part of them is the fact that people think that these were some kind of secret knife that the Scots carried and everything. And there might be a little truth to that, but there's also quite a bit of conjecture to that. And that comes from the name itself, Sgian Dubh. And Sgian basically means knife, and Dubh basically means black. So it's a black knife. And the idea was that it meant black as in not the color, but as in something secret. And so it was like the hideaway knife. However, for the most part, at least since the early 1800s, the Sgian Dubh was not at all hidden. It was actually sticking out of the top of the hose, and it was very visible when a Scotsman was wearing his kilt. So how is this a secret knife if it's obviously noticeable on the leg? And the story goes that the Scots carried a knife known as the Sgian Dubhs, which was more of the size that you have here. This is the right edge Sgian Dubh, and you see it's a little bit bigger than the common Sgian Dubh of today. You know, it's got about a 5 or 6 inch blade, and some of them had as much as an 8 or 9 inch blade. And the Sgian Dubhs was known as the armpit dagger. That's basically what it meant, armpit dagger. And it really wasn't worn in the armpit. It was kind of worn on the left arm, up by the armpit. And it was supposedly secreted away. And it was a knife that they would pull out and use basically as a last resort. And the story goes that when a Scotsman would go visit a friend or something, they would take their Sgian Dubhs out, or Sgian Dubh, whichever way you want to call it, and take it away from the armpit, and they would stick it in the top of their hose or their sock when they were visiting their friends, so that their friend would know that, well, there's no danger here. You can see where my knife is. Could that be true? Maybe yes, maybe no. The other story is this same knife, the Sgian Dubhs or Sgian Dubh, the larger version of the knife, was also a knife that women would carry. And some stories say that the women carried this in the front of their kilt, which is interesting because at the time women would not have been wearing a kilt. They would have been wearing a loosely folded skirt instead. And they said that the Sgian Dubh was worn under her apron, but in the folds of her dress, or her kilt, which is not accurate at all. I mean, she would have been wearing a skirt, which is not the same as a kilt, and it would have probably been in a pocket. And they'd say that the women would do the same thing, which is really bogus, because basically the Scottish woman would have never revealed that she was holding the knife to begin with, and she would never reveal where she was keeping it hidden. So that's the way it would have been. And the same thing goes with the armpit dagger. Why would the Scotsman remove it from his secret hiding place if the knife was secreted away somewhere around his body? Why would he remove it from that location to put it in his sock? So there's a lot of people who really kind of doubt that whole story about that. The other stories go that this was a knife used as part of their eating utensils, and there's a very good chance that that is true. But they also say that it was a knife used for skinning game, which is probably also true. I mean, why couldn't the same knife be used for both things? I mean, the small paring knife in your kitchen, or even that boning knife in your kitchen, could also be taken out into the field for skinning game. So there's no doubt about that in my book. And one of the things with it is it really depended on it if it had the type of handle on it. Was it a wood handle? If it's a wood handle, then maybe it was a kitchen knife. If it had a stag handle, then maybe it was a game hunter's knife. I don't really see that as a big deal. I think the use of stag on the handle would have been something that a person would have used simply because it looked nicer than wood. So, you know, if you had the money for it, you would have put on stag, or if you were a hunter, you would have used stag simply because you killed a deer, you got the stag, why not use it as opposed to wood? It's going to be more durable than a wood handle. So that's my thought on why some were with wood and some were with stag. Really didn't matter. It was the material that was available at the time, and that's what they ended up using. That's why you also see it in bone. You also see them in ivory and pearl. It's whatever somebody could afford. And you start seeing the more decorative ones in the 1800s and so. Also, I should mention the whole story of the Sgian Dubhs and or the armpit dagger. There's no examples of armpit daggers actually existing. And the knives that might have been passed off as an armpit dagger were also more or less just a Scottish dirk, a larger version of a Sgian Dubh. And so, did they carry an armpit dagger? Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. What we do know is that physical evidence of a Sgian Dubh does exist. And also, we start seeing them appear in paintings of the Scottish nobles somewhere around 1810. So we know that they were definitely being used before then. We also have heard stories that the upper nobility and also like officers in the army did not carry Sgian Dubhs early on, and because they felt it was the knife for peasants and for like not the game hunter, but the ghillie, the boy who actually cleaned up the game. So this knife was a knife for not for the nobility, it was for the common man and for the peasants. It wasn't for any of the upper class. It wasn't until the early 1800s, as a matter of fact, more like the mid 1800s, that Scottish nobility started adopting this, and the higher ranking officers in the Scottish army actually started wearing a Sgian Dubh with their uniform. And it was around this time when the Sgian Dubhs started becoming a little more fancy, and they started doing more engraving into the handles of the knives, making more elaborate sheaths for the knife and everything else. Before that, they were more or less kind of plain, even if they were using stag or a nice black wood handle or anything, and they were a relatively common, plain-looking knife that were more designed for function than for looks. Now that brings us to these reproduction Sgian Dubhs. Now these, I bought both of these off of eBay. Matter of fact, I also bought the right edge back here off of eBay. We'll talk about all three of these. I will link to one of my videos on this Sgian Dubh. This, like I mentioned before, was given to me by Slick Slicers. This is a proper Sgian Dubh made in Sheffield, England. But let's look at this one first. I've shown this one before. Made in China. And it's not the worst looking Sgian Dubh in the world, but it is very much in the line of tourist hat. I put it in the sheet backwards. How do you like that? Anyway, this is the front side of it. And you see the thistles here. You see the crest is an incident where a borders man saved the life of Robert the Bruce from a wounded bull and created the clan Turnbull afterwards. What you have on the front is the basket we've designed, and on the back side you have, I guess it's supposed to be the grain of bog oak represented in the plastic. In any case, it's an interesting little story and makes sense for Scotland. This would have been most likely brass fittings. I'm not sure what kind of metal this is. It's not brass, I can tell you that. There may or may not have been a jewel on the top. The jewel here is just a plastic stone, and it actually fell out. It was just held in place with a piece of paper tape. I've glued it back in with epoxy so it'll at least stay in place. And then it would have had brass fittings on a leather covered wood scabbard, and these do have like just a scabbard. The blade goes into a scabbard, the scabbard goes into the hose or the sock, and then the knife, usually just a portion of the hilt is usually stuck out, so you'd probably see that much of it. So part of the knife or handle of the knife would probably be inside the hose as well. But because this has a shield or a crest here, that crest would have been shown. In any case, pulling it out, we see the blade, relatively thin blade, just marked stainless china. I do not know what kind of steel it is. It has the file work on the top. This is very common for a Sgian Dubh. It will have that little bit of file work going around on the top, and it will often have just a fuller on one side. Notice there's no fuller on this side. It's usually on just one side that it'll have a fuller. It is a spear-like point blade that you'll usually see. One side will be sharpened. So that all looks proper. And the problem with it is, well, first of all, for $10, $15, I guess it's really not too bad. You have a metal blade. Apparently these days, a lot of Sgian Dubhs that are worn in Scotland don't even have a blade. If they do have a blade, it'll be a plastic blade because of their knife laws and everything. But quite often you'll find some that will just have like a cap lifter instead of a blade. The problem with this blade is if you look closely, you can see that the tang is about 3/8 of an inch wide. See where it is going into the handle there? This whole handle is not going in. If you notice, this one is full tang. And then you have the tang going in. I have no idea how far. I doubt it goes in more than about a half an inch or so, just enough that you can actually pass a pin through there or mold the plastic around the hole so that it will not come out. But the blade is secured in there tightly, and well, you can obviously poke with it. It's not going to take any real abuse or anything. And from a distance, and maybe even on the camera, it really doesn't look that bad. For something to stick inside your the hose and to wear with a kilt, you know, for a ceremonial purpose or something like that, it's really not the worst looking thing that you're going to have. Also, at $15, if you lose it, you're not going to cry. So it has that going for it. Now this next one is a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, and all in all, just a little bit better. But we're still talking about a Sgian Dubh that has a plastic scabbard with pot metal fittings. Doesn't look bad. Kind of Celtic designs going on there. Has a different shield. You got a pistol and a feather and actually a quill. So this is you know, for writing. And then it's got the letter there that looks like a G, I believe. And you see once again some nice carving going on in there. This one has the shield on both sides, which is really nice. Has a more of a wood tone to the plastic, still a plastic handle. And then you have the fake stone on the top and the collar up there for the pommel. So this one, as you can see, looks a little bit better. This one is going to go for around $15 or $20. I think it looks a whole lot better. Even the wood grain down here looks better. This one also, it only goes in the sheath one way. This one, if you notice when I first had it out, this can actually go in the sheath backwards, which is a little bit problematic. This one though has designs on both sides. So if you're putting it in the left sock or the right sock, it would work fine. However, this one is a lot more bulky. So this one is much slimmer and will fit in the sheath or fit in your hose a lot better and not bother your leg nearly as much, especially considering how large the pommel gets on this because it's all rounded out. Got the blade here, much more substantial blade, as you can tell here. You've got a swedge on the top here for the blade. You've got a nice long fuller on one side still, and then you've got some deep cuts here, more like jimping instead of file work. It should have been just kind of file work going on. It does say China. It looks like you have more of the blade being seated into the handle as well. So this one is a much more substantial knife, and it's a bigger knife too. As we can see here, this one comes in at overall length right at 8 3/4 inches. If we get the stone there and everything, it's 9 inches including the stone at the back. The blade length on this is 4.5 inches. So this is a very large Sgian Dubh by today's standards. This might have been a more proper size Sgian Dubh back in the 1800s, with the handle being about, well, let's just go without the stone, 4 inches, with the stone about 4 1/4 inches. So very much a bigger, bulkier knife, but still something that, well, might be a little heavy on the legs. So that's why this one might be a one that more people would choose to wear with the hose. It would be lovely if to find something like this shrunk down a little bit smaller with a more substantial blade, but I like this one more simply because of how well it is made, and it was only like $5 more than this, and definitely worth paying the $5 for. As you can see, it will not go in wrong. Now I bought this one a long time ago, and this was Right Edge's answer to the Sgian Dubh, and it's got numerous things wrong with it. One of them is just the shape of the blade isn't quite right. It also is missing the file work on the top. It does not have the fuller going, but it has a really nice handle shape. It has a lanyard hole in the back, which is a nice touch. Why I bought it was mainly because it was white smooth bone. Sheath is all wrong with it, because it actually has a belt loop here for it. So, and most Sgian Dubhs just have a scabbard. They do not have the belt loop. They do not have any way to snap it down. I keep thinking I'm going to cut this off, but it's not a proper Sgian Dubh anyway, even though it is sold as a Sgian Dubh. Notice also that when it's sitting there, it isn't quite straight across here with the with, I guess you could call it the front bolster. It's not cut straight, but still, I'm talking about something that goes for about 20 bucks or so on eBay. Got brass pins holding it in place. It isn't bad, but it's also not really a Sgian Dubh. Got some gunk there from a sticker. Probably the sticker that said it was made in China or Pakistan that has since come off. That's the other thing. I believe this was made in Pakistan. So these two were made in China. This was made in Pakistan. And so now, last up here is a proper Sgian Dubh. You notice with a stag handle going on. A much better blade steel. I believe this is O2 blade steel. You can get Sgian Dubhs made in Sheffield, England, that go for, well, I think with a wood handle, you can get them for like $40 or $60 with a stag handle. They start ranging in prices starting around $90 to $100 or so. Might be a little cheaper if you're actually in the UK. They come with a leather scabbard. That's not the world's greatest scabbard, but still, for what it's designed for, it does a great job. It holds the knife in place. Yeah, had it in the right way the first time. And you can see also, size-wise, the length of the modern Sgian Dubh, which is not really big. They come in right around 7 inches with a blade that is, some of them have a blade as little as 3 inches. This one has a blade that's 3.5 inches. So, and it being a fixed blade with a 3.5 inch blade, I don't even think you can carry this legally in the UK. Compare it to size here. You can see this has about the same length of blade and about the same length of handle. So this is about the size of the Sgian Dubhs of today. This is more the size of a Sgian Dubh that would have been around in the 1800s. This is just right edges calling a knife a Sgian Dubh, even though there's not much about it that is a Sgian Dubh. Any case, hope you enjoyed this. I still am looking for, well, I have a proper Sgian Dubh here, but my love for the idea of the Sgian Dubh makes me want to get another proper Sgian Dubh, so I'll have 2 of them. But nothing's going to actually replace this knife, because this Sgian Dubh was a gift from Slick Slicers, and just that in itself gives a new meaning to this knife, the fact that it was a gift from a friend. let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with Tobias. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.